How you doing?
Hi.
Nice night.
Mm-hmm. Pizza dude's got 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Time's up. $3 off.
All right, hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome and thank you for being here. This is Comic Book Radio. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti. This is episode 101. 101. My guest tonight is Ray Ramos. We're going to be talking about encounters with monsters, cryptids, and unexplainable beasts. Ray, of course, has a book called The Cryptids, and you can find that at your local comic shop now. Can you believe it? Check that out. Before we get started, Oliver from 656. What's up, buddy? Speaking of 656 Comics and Ray's partner in crime, there you go, Oliver. Johnny, be casual. What's up? Says, now I have the pants. Indeed, sir. Indeed. Some person. We had technical difficulties. Says, this might be the first time Ray is on time. Little on me, little on him. You know how it is. This stuff happens. It's a live show, but we are here, and he is here. We got What Geeks Do Network here tonight. What's up, What Geeks Do? It's going to be a fun show indeed. Shrek PMC in the house as well. What's up, Shrek? Leonore, what's up? Hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here tonight. We also have, let's see here, Ben Soto. What's up, Ben? Good to see you, Ben. Thank you for being in the chat tonight. Brian Suddenly Old is here as well. What's up, Brian? Hope you're doing well. We got Cigar Gangster here. Cigar Gangster, thank you, man. Appreciate you being here. Blake Powell in the chat. What is up, Blake Powell? Look at that. Midnight Mausoleum. Check that out, guys. Randy Scribner in the house as well. What's up, Randy? Hope you're doing well. Metatron's Cube is here too. What's up, buddy? Hope you're doing good. Look at that. Ray's in the chat as well. Mexcelsior. I love it. Bobo, what's up, Bobo? Hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here tonight. Johnny Slaction in the house as well. Ninja kicked the damn rabbit. Michelangelo. That's one of the best, not just Ninja Turtles movies. It's the best, obviously. One of the best comic book movies of all time. The Beam Pad, hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here as well. All right. So without further ado, let's bring him on. The mysterious man of the hour, who will no longer be so mysterious to us. He shall be revealed to all. Mr. Ray Ramos. Happy Harry Hardon. What's up, buddy?
What is up, Pete? Good to see you, sir. Smiling Pete Cimetti. Always a pleasure, sir. This is awesome.
Thank you for being here, man. It's going to be a fun one tonight.
Yes, just definitely. In the green room, when I was showing you in the green room, I can't wait to reveal that stuff and see what your take is on it, man. It's very, very cool stuff, and it's great to be amongst fellow cryptozoologists like yourself. So.
Oh yeah, well, it's endlessly fascinating, and the stuff you were showing in the green room, I'm wondering what the chat thinks of it. I'm wondering. We're gonna show it soon, but that's some pretty interesting stuff, and I don't even know what to make of it.
It's one of those things, like when it happened. I mean, we'll get into it, but the story behind it is insane, man. So we'll get into that right now.
Yeah. So we're not too vague about it for those of you in the chat. We're talking about the body of it looks like a cryptid, the body of something that can't really be identified, some kind of a creature. And it sounds like it's a really interesting story, and I can't wait to get into it. But before we do that, you've got a book called The Cryptids. What's up with that? Where can people find that? Because you guys have had a crowdfunding campaign, and then now it's in comic shops too, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we had the Cryptonolds about 2.5 years ago. We crowdfunded it through Indiegogo. Went really well. We, delivered our trades and everything. Everybody was happy. But we always wanted to go, one step. We wanted to turn it up to 11, so to speak, right? So we decided to shop it around and see if a publisher would be interested in picking it up and distributing it. So sure enough, we have a publisher friend. He looked at what we had, and he had already put some books out through Diamond. And he said, "Yeah, I'll pick it up. Let's go. Let's do this." So we cut up the book into 7 issues because there's that much material the material in the trade. But the 7th issue that we're working on is a little bit more new stuff. So each issue has new stuff that was not included in the trade. It doesn't take away from the original story, but it just adds to it a little bit more. And we also have a side story going on because we have received a lot of questions about the humans in the story, because there wasn't any focus on any humans whatsoever. It's just all cryptids. And people were like, well, where are the humans? What are they doing? So the little side story that we have is called Dark Light, and that's focusing on the human aspect of what's going on while the main Cryptonold story is happening. And in issue 7, cross my fingers, everything's going to be tied together and interwoven. It's going to be really, really cool. Oliver and I have some ideas that we want to try, so that should be going on. Right now we are on issue 4. Issue 4 hit the shops last week. It's the Chupacabra cover that everybody was going crazy over. The next issue is issue 5. It's been solicited for November, I believe, and issue 5 deals with the Jeff the Killer creepypasta that we kind of like reinvented a bit too. So it should be interesting. But you can get it at any local comic book store. Actually, online as well. Like Midtown Comics has it. Who else has it? I think. Things from Another Planet. Stuff like that, a bunch of different shops online, and issue 1 is selling out. Like, it's really difficult to find issue 1 now. So
I'd want to clarify. You mean Things from Another World? Is that?
Yeah, there you go.
Tifa.
There you go. Things from Another World. Mm-hmm.
I don't want people going out there, because there's Forbidden Planet, and then there's Things from Another World. I don't want people going out there being like, "What are the things from another?" He lied to us.
I know, like false advertisement right there.
That's great, man. Congrats. I hope it's doing well. I hope people are enjoying it. I hope the reception is well and is getting out there and more people are discovering it. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's exciting because we're just shopping around. A lot of people are interested. We're talking to different people about doing different things with the book, or with the story. So hopefully those kind of start coming together very soon. Man. We'll have more announcements and stuff. So
very nice, very nice. So you've been interested. You're like me. You've been interested in this kind of subject for a very long time. What gave birth to that? Why?
Oh man. It was my messed up childhood.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, there was a lot of craziness going on in my childhood that I didn't realize till I got older what was happening. But it all started with La Llorona. And if you guys aren't familiar with La Llorona, it's a Mexican legend of a woman who drowned her children and was damned to wander the earth because of her crime, looking for her lost children that she drowned in the river. So she's kind of cursed, and you can always hear her crying when she's when you're nearby, when you're near her. She'll say the words "mis hijos," which means my children, my children. It's kind of like a take on the Banshee tale, but it's more full of folklore. Especially in this area of the country, because I'm in El Paso and we're right up against Mexico, and this whole area growing up, our grandparents and our parents always scared us into doing what they wanted us to do by sicking La Llorona on us and telling us, like, if you don't behave, or if you come home late, or if you disobey your parents, La Llorona is going to come at night and you're going to hear her. So when I was a kid, I already had grown up with this story, and not too far from where I live, it's kind of sectioned off as far as El Paso. There's a San Elizario, Texas, is like right smack up against El Paso as well. And traveling to San Elizario, there's this one part called Moon City. It's a little community. My sister lived out there, and I went to go visit her one time. My brother-in-law had a satellite dish, and this was, it's kind of like an age gauge. It tells you how old I am, right? So back in the day, if you remember, if you had a satellite, you had to affix it at a certain time of night in order to get the reception.
Yeah.
Yeah, in order to watch whatever you wanted to watch. And my brother-in-law was like, "Hey, come over and I'll put the Playboy channel on." And I'm like, "Oh, awesome. Hell yeah." I was like 12, 13 around that age, and I was like excited. And so
If
yeah,
you
my
if you point it to Venus, you'll pick up the Playboy channel.
just don't point it to Mars. Don't point it to Mars. But
Some
sure,
people may want to point it to Mars. That's their own business.
true that, sir. It's very violent on Mars, that's why. But anyway, so my sister cleared it with my parents. I was good to go. I showed up on a Friday night, sure enough. But back in that time, you had to wait till midnight in order for the reception to come in. That's when you were able to get it, right? Um, yes, awesome. And so we waited up. My sister went to bed, and my brother-in-law and I stayed up in the front room. And this room it's kind of hard to describe, like a perfect square. It was a huge garage before, and he converted it into their little house, right? And there was the living room in the front, and the side was a little kitchen, and in the back was the master bedroom. That's where my sister was with the kids. And we were hanging out in the front, in the living room where the TV was. And it was attached to the main house, which was his parents' house. So when you drove up into the driveway, their house was like right there. So you could shine lights into the front of the house. And it was made like by cinder blocks, and it was really kind of like really makeshift, but it was still a sturdy house. As soon as you walked in, immediately to your left, there was a door that led out to the backyard. And there was dogs in the backyard. And the reason I mention that is because it comes into the story later. So we were sitting up, we were watching, we started watching the Playboy channel around midnight. And I passed out after a while. He passed out as well. So all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, I think it was maybe like 2, 3 in the morning, I hear knocking on the door. No, go ahead.
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead. Where did you go, Pete? Where did you go?
So first of all, I'm thinking like the Playboy channel part's vital to the story, and then second of all, I'm thinking you both passed out while watching it.
Yeah.
That was must have been a hell of a feature that night.
Well, I'll add this much. There was some recreational sort of stuff going on. Not sexual, mind you, but I mean
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was some cannabis imbibed, so we'll just leave it at that.
Anyway. All right. Well, okay.
All right.
But you still saw, so you saw or heard something?
Well, I don't know how long it had been, right? So all of a sudden I hear knocking on the door, like this loud knocking on the door. And I get up, I sit up because it was so loud and the dogs were barking. You could hear the dogs like murdering each other, trying to like get out. I sit up and I didn't bother looking to where my brother-in-law was. And I thought immediately that he might have locked himself out. So I went to the door and I was about to open it. And the knocking continued like really, really loud. As I get to the door, he sits up. Right in Quinton appeared and grabbed him by the neck. It's right about me. Pretty much, man. That's what it seems like. As I get to the door, my brother-in-law sits up and he's like, No. Don't open the door. It's La Llorona. If you open the door, she's going to come in here and take us all. And I'm like, what? Like, how much did you smoke, man? Like, what's going on? And the dogs are just going crazy, right? So I'm about to open the door. And sure enough, it started wailing. And it made this sound that I cannot describe, Pete. It was like this weird, like crying, moaning, gurgling sound. Like it was underwater. Whatever it was out right outside the door. And I was compelled to open it. I wanted to see what it was. And when it started wailing, the dogs, like, they shut up. Everything went quiet. It was just this thing wailing outside. And my sister came out from the back, and she's standing there, and she's like, oh, my God, it's happening again. And I'm like, what do you mean again? I'm still, like, by the door. She's like, come back, sit down, just leave it alone, sit down. So it took everything I had to come back and sit down at the couch. As I was coming back, and I was letting go, I hear it take a breath, and that's what really disturbed me, like, the most. To this day, I can still hear it, and it, like, someone trying to breathe underwater, someone that has, like, heavy congestion trying to breathe. And that was like the scariest part of it all. But I managed to get back to the couch. I sat down, and the thing continued. It seemed like forever. And finally it stopped. As soon as it stopped, this bright light flashed through the cracks in the cinder blocks. It was as bright as sunlight. That's the only way I can describe it. It was as bright as sunlight. and it was this really eerie scene, and then it kind of dimmed like real weird, like a car, like when you turn off the lights on the, when you kill the battery and the lights, you leave them on and they kind of just dim out.
Yeah.
But it took forever for the lights to dim out, and it's really vivid in my head. And as soon as the lights dimmed out, maybe a few seconds later, the dog started barking again. And I looked at them. I looked at my brother-in-law and my sister. I'm like, what the hell was that? What the hell just happened? And she's like, just don't worry about it. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Go back to sleep. I couldn't go back to sleep after experiencing that. That was like, not even the Playboy Channel could put me back to sleep, right? And it was like forever and ever. Finally, like, I think the sun was coming up and I finally passed out. Sure enough, the next morning or the next day, whenever, I was adamant. Like, what happened? What did I see? What did I experience? What was going on? And she's like, it's La Llorona. She shows up every once in a while. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, you know what? That's it. That's all you're getting. I'm not going to tell you anymore. I don't want to talk about it. She left it at that. So after that,
Can't
like, it
do
kind of, yeah.
Gotta explain.
I'm like, I want to know. After that, I was still adamant. I was still asking questions. Nobody would answer anything. I went home, and after that, like, a lot of stuff started happening in the house. It kind of like followed me. Whatever negative energy it was, followed me to the house, and my parents were going through a lot of stuff. There was a lot of fights, and it was just a bad like atmosphere at home. So years later, finally, when I was 18 on graduation day, I asked my sister, like, what happened that night? What did I see? And she told me, okay, so this is the deal. During that time, I was asking for things. I wanted certain things I didn't have. And I was asking for a lot. And I was getting them. But there was a price to pay. And that price to pay was whatever was happening outside the house, whatever was showing up.
What? So
Yeah.
she basically conjured something.
Yes, exactly. And on top of that, growing up, I started finding out a bunch of stuff. And see, the thing is, like, growing up, I was stupid. I didn't even notice my surroundings. I didn't know what was happening. My mom was into some stuff. My sister was into some stuff. And when she started telling me that, I started remembering, like, holy crap, that's the first time that I ever read, like, the Necronomicon and the Satanic Bible. She had those Time Life books, stuff like that.
Time. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I forgot
afternoon.
about. I repressed it or something. And she had a lot of fetishes. She had candles, and I'm like, holy crap, that's what that was. That's what was going on. So sure enough, I started putting pieces together, and my mom was in some stuff, and a bunch of stuff happened at my house as well. But that's like for another show. But that was the main thing. That was the whole thing about La Llorona, and I was fascinated by this supernatural stuff, especially her. Yeah, open the door, exactly. And I wanted to know more. I wanted to know what her story was. And that was the thing that got me more or less into the whole supernatural, the cryptids, and all these local legends that happened around this area.
Holy smokes, man. I wish I had well, no, I don't. I was going to say I wish I had a story like that for why I got into that stuff, but no, I don't wish I had a story like that.
It was nuts, man. I could tell you, my house was like an epicenter for negative energy, and it didn't help that my parents like shouldn't have belonged together, but they tried. They stayed together for the kids, right? And everything just went to shit from there. I would see a lot of shadow people. I would see a lot of different things at the house, and a lot of my friends would doubt me. They're like, "You're crazy, man. There's nothing there." And then they'd show up at the house in the middle of the night, and they'd see these things, and they're like, "I'm never coming here again. I don't want anything to do with your house." And it was really, really bizarre. The house now belongs to me, and it's kind of my mom left me the house, and it's kind of empty. It's kind of desolate.
Yeah, the last time we talked, you had mentioned that there's a lot of weird things that happen on that property.
Oh yeah. Did I tell you about the UFO?
Yeah, you had mentioned that.
Yeah, there's the UFO. And then the appearances of my dad. Like, my neighbors see my dad, and he's been passed away since like 2013. And my neighbors would see him walking around outside the house, and I'm like, man, that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. That's really interesting. I grew up in a very negative kind of environment too, and but I didn't have any experience like that necessarily. I can't explain or quantify how I got into unknown paranormal stuff. I think the aspect of it being strange and being something that seemed like it was impossible but obviously something was occurring and people were talking about it, and there was a lot of stuff about it, whether it was books or stuff on TV or whatever. That kind of drew me to it because it's like a weird paradox. It doesn't make sense. It's like this thing that exists but doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so many people, thousands, millions of people, if you want to count everybody from whenever, have an experience, have a story, have researched whatever. But then at the same time, all these people with all these experiences, it's still like, no, it doesn't really exist though. So it's
Exactly.
that part of it's always kind of fascinated me, but I've never had like an experience that led me to it. I know a lot of people have. I've had experiences in some ways since, and I had experiences along the way that I didn't realize until later could probably be classified as paranormal in some way, like, you know, lucid dreaming, flying around the neighborhood, seeing aspects of people's backyards or whatever it is, and then later on checking it years later with like Google Earth.
Yeah.
You know, coming upon that one day and then being like, oh crap, I wonder if I could, you know, see the aerial view of the neighborhood I used to fly around in.
See, that's
And
cool.
then seeing people's like the backyards, like one house I could still remember it specifically. It was the house across the street, but it was the house across, like behind that house. I never could have seen their backyard ever. But in my dream, I would fly around the neighborhood and I could see that backyard when I was flying around, and I was always envious of the pool they had. They had a nice looking pool, right? And we didn't have a pool. And I could see their pool, and I was thinking, like, man, that's a cool pool. You know, I was like maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 when this was happening. I would fly around all the time in my dreams up until probably around 11, 12 years old. And then later on, I remember that I used to do that. But I could never see it. You couldn't see this pool at all. The way it was set up with the fence, everything else, that you couldn't see it. You had to go into the house in the backyard to see it. I look it up on Google Earth, there's a pool.
Oh.
And it's exactly the pool I saw when I was flying. And the backyard is just as nice as when I remember. You know, it was still, whoever was there was either, it was still the same owners or they were maintaining it or whatever. And it sent a shiver up my spine because, you know, the whole time I'm just thinking like, oh yeah, you're flying around. You know, it's a dream, right? You know, it's just a dream. And then to see that, and then other aspects of other places I would fly to around the area, certain trees, certain colors of certain homes, certain builds of certain homes, that was really weird. Because there was stuff that I couldn't have possibly seen unless I was from a height. It's almost like, you know, like the Nazca lines and things like that, and a ton of other things that they're these big, giant geoglyphs, and you can't actually get the whole picture unless you're above, you know, and it's that kind of a thing of like I couldn't get that picture unless I was above. And the only time I was ever above was when I was flying in my dreams. And to then see it later on with Google Earth stuff was very strange.
And then that's the thing, like once, like what do you do with that once you get like justification for your dreams, you know what I mean? Like where do you put that? Like, do you believe it or do you not, or do you think it's coincidence? You know, it's very interesting because I haven't had that extreme of experiences as far as you know, out of body experiences, but I remember the lucid dreaming part. I remember that. I remember rising up out of my bed because I had a bunch of posters on my ceiling, right? And I remember rising up, and the posters were getting closer and closer and closer to my face, right? And I remember reaching out to touch one, and as soon as I touched it, I remember falling and landing on the bed. Like I remember the bed shaking. So that's as far as I got. But you were like out there, man.
I was out
around.
there. I was out and about. I've had flight dreams where I'm doing like almost like a Superman level of flying.
Oh wow.
Like I'd get far, like scary far sometime, like above the earth and seeing the earth and flying to certain point and through the clouds and feeling like the mist of clouds.
Oh wow.
And all that kind of stuff. And it's just very, very strange stuff. And you could chalk it all up to dreams or whatever it is, or, you know, the brain and imagining and things like that. But I always wonder, like, what would even possess me to do that? Because it's not like we hear all the time with dreams where you can easily explain it as stuff you're thinking about in the day or your subconscious or your, you know, whatever. And I would never think about stuff like this. And I'm deathly afraid of heights. I can't stand heights. I go up like 20, 30 feet, on like and I'm just like, nope, 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 not doing it, It's just so to be in a dream and feel completely at ease about flying and sometimes at tremendous speeds, and it's very strange to me. Very strange to me. And so I would have that. I would have dreams about other things that feel like I'm in either a past life or someone else's life or a different
wow.
version of myself. And I would know people. It was very familiar to me, but I'd never met those people before in my life. But they were best friends or a spouse or a house or my parents, but they weren't my parents. Like, I'd be calling these people mom and dad, and they're not my mom and dad. But I'd be very comfortable with it. But in the dream, there'd be some kind of weird thing in the back of my head going, these aren't your parents. But like, so it's very strange. I've had a lot of stuff like that over the years, and I still have lucid dreams to this day. And just full disclosure, I don't do anything. The most that I do ever in terms of like altered states of consciousness for substances or anything, the most I do would be like caffeine and maybe like a sip of a drink. I'm the guy that has like a nip of alcohol for a whole year because I don't really drink.
Yeah.
So that's the most. I've never smoked. I've never done. I've never smoked weed. I've never smoked anything. I've never done any hard drugs whatsoever. So it's one of those things where it's always strange to me that I've had the ability to do stuff like that. But at the same time, I think, like, is it ability? Like, I talk myself down from it, and then I hear other people talk about it and explain it, and I'm always like, maybe that is something. Maybe there's something to it. But that's been the most of my paranormal experiences. Obviously, seeing like shadow people, having sleep paralysis, that kind of stuff occur. That's happened to me a lot. But in terms of like seeing a Bigfoot or hearing something, or the most I ever had with that, I could say, is probably like hearing things and sometimes seeing things that I couldn't really explain, that would be like a UFO, either caught in a picture or a video, or sometimes seeing it, but I'm like, I don't know what that is necessarily, so I can't quantify it, but I just don't know what it is. So I can't say it's like a flying saucer or a true UFO or even something that's man-made that I just don't know what it is. But the most I've ever experienced was here when we had moved here. It's probably like 2 months in, and I've said this story before. And I don't know if I told it to you, but the last time you were here, but I felt like the whole apartment was shaking. We're on the 3rd floor, and it was about 3 a.m, and got woken up to it, where it's like a big like whirring sound. And the thing is it like a whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And it wasn't like someone's car bass or something, stupid like that. It was like, it shook like the whole place. And it was louder than what I could talk as, because I was trying to like wake up my wife, like, do you hear that? And she's like, what the hell is that? And I'm almost like shout talking because it was so loud. And then I'm starting to try to get up and go to the window to see if I could see anything. By the time I get up out of the bed itself, I hear just like whoosh, like that kind of like, and whatever it was is gone. Now we're probably, I'd say, I don't know, 10 miles from a military base, from Pease Air Force Base. So there's a long storied history of stuff at Pease. There's the Exeter incident. There was the Betty and Barney Hill incident. There's all kinds of stuff in New Hampshire that it talks about UFOs. Even the Exeter incident to this day is still one of those things where there's a lot of stuff that happened, a lot of witnesses, a lot of people that reported about something, and they didn't want to look into it.
Yeah.
And they got military involved and local authorities, and everything got stonewalled every single aspect of the way. And then they kind of brushed it under the rug with like a simple explanation that made no sense. Like, is a helicopter. Like someone wouldn't know what the hell a helicopter is.
Yeah.
That kind of a thing. And that happened decades ago. But so there's stuff like that that's happened to me, but that type of thing that you're talking about is blood curdling.
It took me a long time to try and like figure out where to put that. You know what I mean? And I think a response to that was comic books and writing and expressing myself in that way. Because growing up, I was a poet. I was very gloomy and all that other stuff. Very angsty. And that kind of like the atmosphere I was living in, the house being the way it was with the negative energy, that just contributed to it. And everything was doom and gloom and oh, woe is me stuff. But as I grew out of that, it just turned into something else. Wanting to tell stories, wanting to tell experiences, and the best form to do that for me was doing comic books, and still doing the poetry on the side, but doing comic books was more prevalent in my life. And of course, a writer writes what they know, and that was what I knew. I knew horror. I knew, these weird paranormal experiences that I had gone through. So I wanted to try and share that, but of course, make it entertaining at the same time. So that's where that kind of came from. And the Cryptinodes I've been working on for years and years. And I've told this story before on your show as well. My buddy and I were driving around and we were pitching ideas to each other, kind of like an exercise. Like, if you had a chance to pitch to Marvel, to pitch DC, to pitch Image. And he's like, what would you pitch? Like, what's the craziest idea you would pitch? And I was like, let's say cryptids that go around the world stealing religious artifacts. How about that? And he's like, how would you even do that? So that's where that came from. And it just kind of built from there. And the background, all the legends that I live with, or rather that are in my backyard, that just contributed to it as well. And I know you put that a lot into your stories as well, into your book, into King Cryptid, where you live, especially the whole UFO activity. And that's fascinating to me because I wish I had more of that in my area, but a lot of the stuff that I have is more like ghosts and paranormal stuff. The UFO stuff is very interesting to me.
Yeah, and I grew up on Long Island. So I grew up in New York, and the area I grew up in has a lot of weird stuff too. But moving into Massachusetts and then eventually New Hampshire, I didn't realize exactly, you always hear about Massachusetts and even about Maine. But New Hampshire was kind of, it's, unless you start diving deep into it, most people don't really know how much supernatural, paranormal, UFO, et cetera, stuff there is in New Hampshire. Yeah, even there's a lot of movements that got started in New Hampshire about various things like that. Movements towards disclosure because there were so many weird things that happened in the region. And they're like, look, just let us know. If there's some kind of military thing happening, you can't give details more than that. Can we just know that that's what that is? Sometimes you might see or hear something that seems unexplainable, and it's a covert military thing and whatever. But they'd be like, no, denial the whole way. So there were a lot of things that got led in different aspects of this state to push for more disclosure towards things, or at least some kind of transparency. Yeah. And again, a lot of stonewalling along the way, which is to be expected with this kind of thing. But yeah, I didn't even know the full extent of it until it's weird. It's almost like when I moved up here, because I didn't have the idea for King Cryptid or anything like that until I moved up here. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like the region was talking to me. Anyone who comes up here generally that I've ever talked to, especially if they come from New York or a place that's more, urban, a lot more people, that kind of a thing, specifically coming up to New Hampshire, and I felt the same thing too, they all talk about the energy is so different. To the point that even sometime we'll go to Massachusetts, we're just maybe like 10, 15 miles or something from it. You feel the energy difference when you come back into the state. And every place has, if you're sensitive to it at all, you can feel that kind of a thing. And I don't know what it is. It makes me sound like I'm a crazy person sometime, depending upon where someone's viewpoint may be, or if they've never felt anything like that. I'm guessing you felt things like that.
Oh,
but
big time.
Yeah, you can feel different energies in different places. And certain states have a certain feel, certain regions, certain towns, all that kind of stuff have a certain feel. And for whatever reason, I vibe well with this state. I never vibed well with New York, with Long Island. I was like a kid like planning my escape one day, you know, like as soon as I could get out of here, I'm out of here. I just didn't like it. It didn't, and I grew up and I was born in New York. So I just wanted to get out. Always wanted to get out of here, no matter where it was, whatever. I just wanted to leave. As soon as I could, as soon as it was possible, I wanted to leave. And meanwhile, most of my family, actually all of my family, is still in New York.
Oh, wow.
My immediate family, still in New York. And they don't really have any desire to leave New York. I've always had, I just had to go. It's like very cagey being in New York. And whenever I would visit, I feel the energy shift big time. I feel the negativity. It feels like Ghostbusters 2 was a documentary.
Oh.
Where you feel the pink slime running underneath. And and I'd feel that and would have to make a very conscious effort and be draining to not let the negativity of just being in the area and feeling the vibes from everybody and the region itself, not let it get to me. And it's super tough. But over here, it's just like it feels like I could breathe. It feels like I'm at peace. It's so hard to explain. Yeah, but yeah. So have you felt like stuff like that on any level with certain things?
Oh hell yeah, all the time. And not only just here in town, but like you said, traveling to other states and other parts of the country. Like New Mexico's right up against us as well. Like New Mexico actually considers El Paso part of them because we're so close together, right? And traveling through New Mexico, like going up to Albuquerque, going up to those areas, like you can feel the change. Like it's big, huge change from being in Texas. Like Texas feels. Have you ever been to Texas, Pete?
No, I've never been to Texas. I know a lot of great people in Texas.
Yeah, there's a lot of great people, but Texas feels so like it's the Wild West, basically. You go outside and you don't know what's going to happen. It just feels odd. It's like, wow, adventure, excitement, let's go, and that's Texas. There's this big open spaces. New Mexico, to me, and this might sound a little bit crazy, but there's always been like this hum. And whenever I go to New Mexico, it feels like it's humming. It's like humming to me. And there's an area in New Mexico called Taos. And in Taos, there is that hum that people have talked about. When you go there, you can hear it. It's prevalent. Yeah. But all around New Mexico, the areas that I've visited have that humming feeling or that sensation in my ears where you try to swallow, but it's like buzzing in your ears. So I've had that. Arizona just feels dry. It feels like vast and there's nothing there. And some of the best like UFO stuff is happening in Arizona as well. So I've always wanted to experience that stuff. I never have. California is just very like, how can I put it? Like erratic. Like it's all over the place. But
yeah, I imagine it would have a similar vibe to New York.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely.
Especially,
but not the ocean part, not the beaches. The beaches are very calm. They're very soothing.
Yeah.
I guess that's why a lot of people like migrate towards the beach.
And not like Northern California, but more like the southern towards the city, towards.
Yes.
And I think it's like the mass congregation of people too. And if you can feel that, because we're all just, like energy all over the place, 24/7. Human beings.
Oh yeah.
And I think if you can feel that, and you're receptive to it. Some people have their own personal satellite dish
exactly.
tuned into various things.
Every once in a while we get the Playboy channel, but not too often. So
yeah, or a couple of fillings pick up a station, that kind of a deal. You start hearing songs and you're like, what the hell song is that?
What is
I don't
that?
know. Yeah, all of a sudden that song pops in your head that you haven't even thought about or heard in like 30 years, and you're like, you're hearing it in your head, but like it's being beamed in. And it's strange how stuff like that can happen, but I felt a lot of that kind of stuff within areas. Like I could never live in a city. I would lose my mind. I would lose my absolute mind. I could never live in New York City or in any kind of very big popular, type populated city. Even doing like New York Comic Con drove me nuts.
Really?
Drove me absolutely nuts. Like it was the worst thing. It was that kind of thing where like what can I compare it to? I guess like if Superman's hearing is kicked up the whole way, and he's just like hearing everything, and he can't tune out any of it, and he's just like that kind of maddening feeling.
Is it like kind of like an anxiety or something? Like is that what you feel like?
Kind of, yeah. It's kind of like a high anxiety feeling associated with it, because I could. Again, it sounds crazy, and unless people have felt what I'm talking about, I completely understand it. No judgment if you think like, man, Pete might be friggin' nuts. But it's that kind of a thing. But then meanwhile, conversely, going up to like the mountains of in New Hampshire, it's like just like
Yeah.
Zen feeling. You're like, wow, quiet. It's amazing. You know, like that kind of thing where you can actually think and breathe and feel at peace and have this kind of, it almost makes sense as to why the monasteries and holy places would be considered, you know, atop mountains and in vast rural type places,
Yeah.
as opposed to, you know, right in the, and I can only imagine, I don't want to dive into it too much, but the holy places, even the ones right now in like the Middle East that have been pretty much torn apart for centuries upon centuries, just battle after battle for it, why there's never any peace there, and why it feels like there always will be some kind of contentiousness in that region for whatever reason it may be. It just feels like geographically, just leave the area, leave it alone, leave it be, and maybe there'll be some peace. Like everyone disperse.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know?
But there's never like any time to. They don't let the area breathe, and what you're
No.
talking about like falls exactly into that whole energy concept that we were speaking about earlier. Like there's so much trapped negative energy in those areas that you can't help but feel that, even if there's nothing there, you can't help but feel that when you walk in. Like at my house, for example, when my mom was still there, when she was still alive, and she was still there, and I go visit her, you could still feel like this weird energy. It wasn't like a creepy energy, but it was a sadness because of all the stuff that had happened before. And I think that's maybe like what you feel as well, like the anxiety, the sadness, you know, all that stuff.
Because that's the other part. Like Rachel says that I don't like crowds. See, I love crowds depending on what it is. So if it's a convention, if it's a sporting event, if it's something, a concert, if it's something where the energy buzzing is a positive, joyous energy, an anticipatory energy, even on an excited level, you know, for something good. If there's a congregation of a lot of people, like even, like a feeling like people would go to church and they would get that kind of feeling too. If it's a positive kind of energy with like 1,000, 10,000, 20,000 people there, I love that. That's great. But it's when people are not in that scenario, you know, or like when your team loses and you go to a sporting event, you know, and they just lost it. They got out of the playoffs type of thing. And I've been to those events too, and man, it just is like, oh, what a buzzkill.
And
but
it
it's
turns,
still,
doesn't it? Like it turns like on a dime.
and it turns. You feel it. You could cut the air with a knife.
Oh God, yes.
Or even like I used to have a band. I used to play for sport teams on hockey teams, and if you have a crowd of people and they're cheering, like, oh my God, the energy for that, you feed off of it, you know. And I think if we didn't feel that, because that's where I think a lot of this stuff, whether it's become quantifiable or scientific or whatever it is, people want to call it metaphysical at this point, but I think that they can quantify it in some way, shape, or form, or maybe even have at this point, and I just can't point to the study or something. But you talk to so many people that are in those positions, musicians, athletes, someone who's in a very positive atmosphere with a lot of people, and they'll talk about that and describe it in that way of where they're feeding off that energy, you know, that it's great. It energizes them, makes them feel wonderful.
And that's the thing too, like what we're doing right now, we're conversing, we're having a really interesting conversation, the energy is gathering, and then we turn on a dime and start talking about something creepy, something, you know, scary, and that turns as well. I always compare it to when you're asleep in the middle of the night and you hear a noise and you wake up and you're startled and you have that anxiety, like, oh my God, the paranoia, like something's going on. What's the first thing that you do is you reach to turn on the light, because that grounds us immediately. That grounds us, or you turn on the TV, something that's mundane or something like that will ground us immediately, and that way we're okay, or at least in our heads we're okay, and that way we can deal with whatever's happening. And that's the phases of the, I call it the energy circle, or whatever you want to call it. And that happens exactly with like storytelling, with comic books, reading books. Our energies start changing, and we get inspired, or we get scared, and all that comes into play. As soon as we're done, like we set down that comic or that book, or we finish listening to that piece of music, our energy is completely positive. It's completely different, and it's ready to go. You're ready to act on it, right? Unless you're willingly trying to like depress yourself, listening to something sad or reading something sad. And that capture of that moment is like a clarity that you can't get anywhere else. And I think that's what I've been trying to do with all the stuff that I create, all the stuff that I write, trying to express myself, trying to make you understand the clarity that I have. It may sound mad to some people, like you were saying, like, yeah, I might sound kind of crazy, but this is what I've experienced, and I would hope that you might experience, or you might be able to relate to it in some way, that it connects with you. So
Yeah, it's a great point. That's a terrific point, and thank you, David. Appreciate it. I'm glad you're enjoying the show.
awesome.
But yeah, that's a fantastic point about the fact that it's almost a transformative experience, right? And people experience that all the time with music in a very direct way. It puts them in that mood, and you were talking about that as well. But with the storytelling aspect of it, that you are communicating what essentially you're communicating emotion to people, and you're trying to distill that emotion and then translate it. And that's like the whole aspect of storytelling. If you want to be very scientific and perhaps a little pretentious about it, people might view that as pretentious, and I'm not saying you're pretentious, I'm saying my explanation is
No,
pretentious.
I understand.
But it's that kind of a thing where you're really, if you boil it down, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to take this emotion, take this experience, fictional or non-fictional, whatever it may be, and you mix it all up, you transform it into something else, you put metaphor in there, allegory in there, you toss in a scenario, a plot, etc., all of that, and then you translate it out and you communicate it to people so that hopefully they feel the thing that you are trying to make them feel. And if you do your job well as a storyteller, then it works. And sometimes you might even do your job better than you expected, and there's a whole other thing that happens, and they feel and interpret a whole other thing out of it and get even more out of it than you had expected. And oftentimes I think storytellers beat themselves up about that, because they're like, well, they weren't supposed to like that character, or they weren't supposed to view it that way. But it's like, no, you don't understand. What you just did was, now you made art. You didn't just make instructions, you made art.
Yeah.
Because otherwise
exactly.
it's instructions, of just saying like, this is what it is, this is how you're supposed to feel, this is how you should interpret it. Okay. That could be good.
You
But
bring up a
once-
really, really good point. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead now. Before
But I was
go
just going to
into
say, once the end user, the audience, gets something else out of it, relates to it through their own experiences, interprets it in a way that means something to them that you couldn't have ever anticipated. You couldn't have foretold that they were going to do that, because otherwise, I mean, maybe you could do, maybe you don't, but you would need to have some kind of psychic ability to be able to do that. So once you do that and it kind of transcends you and your original intent, that's when the magic happens. But so many people get so upset about that.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. And it's interesting that we're talking about this. I was having a very similar conversation with some friends of mine, and they're native. And the thing that they were telling me is that usually when the only way I could put it is like this, right? So whenever the colonizers would show up, they would try to single out the shaman and the storyteller, because every tribe had a shaman, every tribe had a storyteller, everybody had their job, right? And they would try to single them out because they would say that the storyteller had the power to rival the shaman. And the reason for that being is because the storyteller kept all the history of the tribe, and at the same time they had the ability to change history. It was all oral tradition, it was all told, by mouth, by word, and they had that ability. So if you wipe out the storyteller, if you kill off the storyteller, then the tribe is done. They don't have a history any longer, and they can do, you can pretty much mold them into whatever you want, because there's nothing to relate to and nothing was written down. So that's how much power us as storytellers have. we can change history, we can change the way that people view things, and we give them that emotion that you're talking about in order to do that. Because what better way than to inspire a person than to command their emotions and make them get up and do something with what we give them, with the story, with the lesson, with the morals that we give them. And I feel like sometimes a lot of stuff that's going on right now in the world, a lot of things, especially with comics, the way that I was growing up, comic books taught me things that I wasn't able to learn by going out into the world and experiencing them. Like, I didn't know what New York really looked like. I learned that from the X-Men. I learned that from Spider-Man. And it inspired me. And it was like, oh my God, New York is so exciting, because these guys that had been there would draw them into their books. And it would inspire me to want to go out into the world and see these things for myself, because they were so cool. I thought they were so exciting, so cool.
Yeah, creating modern myths, essentially.
Exactly. And now it feels like that's lacking a lot in books. It's not for the sake of storytelling. It's not for the sake of entertaining someone and having them, have that, the suspension of disbelief, or whatever you want to call it. It's like an agenda-driven kind of thing sometimes, it seems.
It's funny, because if we go back then to that point in time, most of the conversation you would have heard would have revolved around, that's not interesting to people. That's not going to speak to them. They're not going to purchase it because it's not going to ring true. It's not going to excite them. It's not going to give them anything that enriches their life, brings value to their time, provides a sense of escapism, et cetera, et cetera. Exactly. It would all be conversation about story, about that's why the story would be able to make money. And because people would want to buy it because of the fact that it meant something to them, that it was, all those things. But when you turn around and then the conversation is no longer about that, and it's coming from not a company that is trying to mostly base themselves around storytelling and character and things like that, and it's more about all the humongous web of mega conglomeration of corporation, it turns into something very different. It turns into a narrative. It turns into propaganda. It turns into various things of how do we almost have mind control over people, because storytelling is powerful.
Exactly.
It's always interesting to me when people within the business will poo-poo storytelling, right? Well, that's crazy. What do you mean that they want to? This is all made up. What do you mean it's powerful in the corporations and the this and that and the and they would want to even care about some fictional crap, like why would they care? And I've had this conversation. It oftentimes turns into arguments that I have to just back away from, because you can't argue with crazy eventually. But I have these arguments sometimes with people who are storytellers. And I'm like, you are telling me about how not powerful storytelling is, while also then telling me, a day before how powerful it is, how much it's meant to you, how much it's impacted your life and everybody around you. It's like, do you not get that? Why is there a disconnect? Do you not understand it? Like, we can all, every single person in this chat could talk about how many stories have impacted their entire life, and without those certain kinds of stories, they don't know if they would be the person they are today.
Exactly.
But yet, storytelling, what do you mean it's powerful? What do you mean they would want stories and they would want to try to control that?
Exactly, sir. I couldn't say it better myself, but it's the truth. It's if you control the history of people, if you control what they know, what they're used to, then you can control them easily. And you feed them whatever you want to feed them, and they'll take it, and they'll do whatever it is that you want them to do with it. And that's exactly where storytelling comes in. Because every night we sit down, we watch the news, and it's presented to us in a way where it's trying to evoke some sort of emotion in us.
There's a narrative, yeah.
Exactly. And as long as you're following that narrative, you're going to get that response that you want. And I don't want to go into the whole conspiracy theory stuff and all that other things, but it's there. It's obvious. Something is going on with that.
Exactly, yeah.
It can't just be for the sake of telling a good story. It has to be some sort of message or an agenda or something like that. And that sucks, because back in the day, like growing up, we loved, going to the comic book store, buying these books, because it was escapism, like you said. We got to go anywhere and be anyone, and it wasn't dictated by what was told to us on the evening news. It was our imagination running away with us and giving us some time, to be, someone else, somewhere else. And I miss that a lot. I miss that. Reading
Yeah.
your books, reading King Cryptid, you have that throwback where it's about just the sake of storytelling, and it's escapism, and you're somewhere else, you're transported somewhere else, and you're dealing with, these stories about this larger than life character. And I love it, man. It's amazing. It's cool, and I'm glad that you're throwing in all these other aspects of it, kind of like what I was doing with the Cryptonotes. You're throwing all these aspects of it from real life, so people can connect to it in some way. Like, hey, I remember the Betty and Barney Hill story, and the way that you threw it into the story as well. Like, dude, that's fucking cool, man. I think.
I'll allow that. I'll allow that F-bomb. I'll allow it.
I'm trying, sir. I'm trying.
Only because you had such nice things to say about King Cryptid.
Yes,
But
sir.
I think even more important than that, even if I didn't mention, or even if any comic never mentioned anything that could tie it to our world, there's plenty of stories that don't take place on our world, don't reference history, anything like that. And they're relatable and they resonate because they are touching upon various things that are easily understood, that people go through, that you get what that character's going through, that situation they're presented with, this larger than life scenario. You're never going to go out and, at least as far as we know, you're never going to go out and go slay that dragon. But the metaphor that's there, the courage involved, up against a situation that's unbelievably frightening, trying to ready yourself for something that's impossible to know what you're going to get into until you're faced with it. That is relatable. That resonates. And any kind of story that's like that, there's always those facets. If it's told well, you can have the most fantastical story in the world, the craziest scenario. But there's always going to be things that ground that situation. And that, I think, is the true power of inspirational and aspirational storytelling.
Definitely.
Is that we can all cut through that and see and relate and understand. And that's the communication involved. That's the aspect of it, I think, that endures time. And then when we try to create storytelling in a way where it's not aiming for something that's transcending the human experience, it's not aiming for something higher than a narcissistic kind of viewpoint, then I think we lose something out of that. And I think it only then speaks to certain people. And most people will become frustrated with that story. And most people will call out that story.
Yeah.
It doesn't ring true because of the fact that the only people it's ringing true for are the people who would have that, my sense of self, me, I'm the universe. There's nothing really outside of me. And that's who those stories ring true for.
Yeah.
But for most of us, we're looking desperately to find connectivity outside of self. And I think that's why largely the stories that do that well, I think that's why they ring true for people.
Oh, definitely. That's exactly it right there. And that's what I've tried to infuse in everything that I've written, like to connect with someone on a different level, to share my experiences with someone that may have had a similar experience as well. The whole Llorona thing, coming back to the whole storytelling thing, how everything is verbally, introduced to the rest of the tribe, so to speak. And that's how history was kept. That's where I came in with the whole Llorona thing. Talking about the fact that these stories are meant to evoke some sort of emotion. What was the lesson that La Llorona was trying to teach us? Don't do bad things. Don't be selfish. Don't go out only for yourself. But as time kept going, stories change, especially if they're not written down, if they're only introduced orally. And I think that's the aspect that I took hold of in introducing La Llorona to modern times, because I updated her. If you know anything about the character, she's supposed to be like this woman in white. She's always crying. She's always drenched in water. She's looking for her children.
Yep.
And I took that aspect of her and I changed it. I made her like this hot goth girl, and she's gonna kick ass because now she's focused on what the true meaning of grief is, and that's not just her grief, but she feels the world's grief. So she is La Llorona. She is weeping, but more for the world now. and
You
trying to.
kind of turned her into a spirit of vengeance.
Yes, exactly, and that's exactly in the newest issue, in issue 3. We really like pushed the envelope on that one as far as the aspect of her being that type of character, the spirit of vengeance. There's a lot of stuff that happens in our backyard, in Mexico and Juarez. The women being kidnapped and being murdered, is very prevalent, and it's been going on for decades now. And there's this aspect of La Llorona that has noticed that, and we present that in the book without giving away too much because the book is still out there if you guys want to pick it up. And she has become, in my eyes, the patron saint of all these lost women that this travesty has happened to. And a lot of people picked up on that. A lot of people were like, "Wow, I've never really thought about it like that." And once again, the power of storytelling comes into play because we're trying to teach you something but entertain you at the same time so that you learn something and it evokes an emotion in you. And I think we achieved that with her character, along with all the other
Nice.
characters. We've done a few things, but La Llorona is the one I'm most proud about, because not only just because of my experiences with her, but just the legend itself. She's always
Yeah.
interpreted as this shadowy, evil woman that's gonna show up and kill your children and take them and stuff.
Yeah, I've
Uh,
always interpreted the way that you are interpreting her. That's the true sense of what I always felt her to be,
mhm.
because of the person that it's based on. I was like, that's an incredibly tragic story, and she was forced to do something and put in a situation that was unbelievably heartbreaking.
Mhm.
This wasn't a woman who was evil. This is a woman that did something that most could consider to be an evil thing, but man, she was put in a very bad situation that was like, what the hell was the alternative?
Exactly.
And to me, for her to obviously still, she would have to pay for that in some kind of way, but she would have to pay for it by trying to right her wrongs,
Hmm.
even though her wrong was not necessarily 100% her fault. She's put in a bad predicament, and so the way that you interpret it, I think is honestly, if it's all 100% true, if that whole thing, I mean, what happened, but if the legend of it is true, especially, I think that kind of story is something that could set that kind of spirit free. You're acknowledging, you're almost giving her due of acknowledging that I see you. You're not evil. You went through something horrible and you had to do something horrible, but you're not a horrible person. And almost like giving her some kind of peace by acknowledging that. That's just my take.
No, you're on the money with that, and it comes from the whole redemption thing. Like, everybody needs to be redeemed in some way, and like Maleficent, for example. They redid Maleficent's story. They redeemed her. They gave her a reason for the way that she was, and I was like, well, why not La Llorona? Why can't she be the same way? And that was part of the aspect as well. Like, we got to do something for her character, for her legend, that puts her in a different light that what we're already used to as far as mainstream and the way that she's presented. And exactly what you're saying, she is this spirit of vengeance, because that is what her purpose is in the end. I feel that she takes up that mantle because no one else is capable of doing that. And it's a very tragic thing, but at the same time, I think it's a very beautiful thing, because there is nothing like that out there, in this area of the country. There's tons and tons of violence. There's always something going on, especially in
Yep.
Mexico.
Yeah.
And there's nothing. There's no like shining light. You got wrestlers, you got all this other stuff, like giant robots, but there's nothing that's more culturally based than La Llorona, I feel. And that's what I wanted to do with her, trying to give her due, like you were saying.
Let's see. Johnny's asking, is she also the woman on the bridge, or am I crossing spirits?
I'm not familiar with the woman on the bridge. There's legends of women on the bridge in this area, but not La Llorona. So.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Because I know of there's a story. I think almost every area even has a similar story about the
Unless he's
woman on the
mentioning
bridge.
the Crybaby Bridge woman, because that one
Oh,
she's related
perhaps,
to
maybe?
La Llorona. That's in San Antonio, the Crybaby Bridge, where you go over the bridge and you can hear in the waters, you can hear babies crying at a certain time of night, and that's referred to as like La Llorona Bridge, but you never hear a woman crying, you hear babies crying. So.
Yeah, yeah. And Johnny says, I'm not convinced we could apply such human logic to restless spirits. I don't know. I am. I'm very convinced of it. I'm not convinced we can apply it to something demonic or something extra dimensional or extraterrestrial, because we can't comprehend what their motives would be necessarily. So it would be kind of a fool's errand to really try, even though we will try, because we're human beings and are constantly trying to make sense of the insane world around us. But at the core of it, this kind of a spirit it was a human being. So like when people are scared of ghosts more than demons, I'm always like, why? Why would you be? That's just a human. That's just a human in a different energy state.
There you go.
The demon is frightening. The demon, I don't know what the hell that is, where the hell that's from, what it's going to do, what its purpose is, what I did to bring it here.
Exactly. We conjured it. No, thank you. I've always had that debate as well. Like, what's scarier, a ghost or a demon? And yeah, definitely the demon, because it's not even human. It's something else.
Yeah. Yeah, I know people that are like, I don't know if they're confused, but I know people who are way more scared of ghosts than demons. And I don't know if it's because they think the demon is so fantastical that there's no way it's real. So so they're not even considering it in the realm of something to be scared of. But to me, the ghost, a spirit of a human being, no matter what it is, it's a human being. The demon, man, I don't know what the hell that is.
Yeah, I mean, immediately I go to The Exorcist. Like, that's scary, man. Being possessed by a demon or something like that. I'm like, no. I don't want anything to do with that. I'd rather deal with a haunted house than a demon-infested house,
Yeah. And then, demonic possession, it's even more frightening, because then you're like, well, where the hell's my soul? Or the soul of that being, if that demon is in it? What is going on? Did they switch places? Is there a way to get it back? How's that happening? And that's, to me, that's way more frightening than a ghost.
I don't know if you've seen did you see the movie The Talk to Me?
I've heard of it.
With the hand.
Yeah,
they have a really, really interesting take on the whole ghost thing. If you get a chance, just watch it. Just to see their take on it. And but it's very close to what we're talking about. Like, what would be scarier, a ghost or a demon? And if you watch that, maybe that'll answer your question a little bit better than than anything else would, because it's a very interesting take on it. I never expected a movie to take that aspect of a ghost and what a demon is at the same time. So.
Oh, interesting. All right, now about that. Can you believe it's an hour? About that thing that we teased out an hour ago with that cryptid. Are you able to bring that up, or
yeah?
How would you like to bring it up? Would you like to talk about the story of it while you're showing the pictures, or do you want to?
Let me tell you the story first, because the story sets everything up, and then when I show you the pictures, and you're like, what the hell? So I work at a pawn shop here in town, and we get like all sorts of people that walk in through the door, right? And this one time I was there, and I was helping this one customer. And another customer walked up, and I noticed him walk up, and he put a bunch of trail cams up on the counter. But I wasn't dealing with him. I was dealing with this other customer. My manager started talking to him and started helping him out. And I'm all, talking to this customer, helping him out, whatever. And then I hear him talking really loud. He starts getting louder. And all I hear is, yeah, man, I don't know what it is. The feds want it. The FBI, showed up. The men in black showed up. I showed it to this professor at UTEP, which is the college here, the university here in El Paso. And he wants it. He wants samples of it. I don't know what it is, but I'll tell you this much, man. I think I know what it is. I think I know what it is, like what's going on. And I turned to look at him like, okay, now you have my interest. I want to know what's going on. So I hurried up and finished with the customer I was dealing with, and I turned my attention to him. And my manager was like, you know what, Ray, this is your expertise, man. You go ahead. And he just kind of walked off and let me handle it. And the guy starts telling me this crazy story that he has land in far east El Paso, past this one area where there's a restaurant named Cattleman's. Up towards that area, there's nothing out there. There's just desert. And he has land out there. And the first thing he said was yeah, I have a bunch of land that I claimed. What's up, Rick? I claimed as sovereign. And when you claim land as sovereign, that means you can do whatever you want on it, like within reason, of course. And he goes into it. He's like, yeah, I want to build a brothel, and have this all this. It always revolves around that, right? That's
Yeah, I was
crazy.
gonna say all roads lead to that.
He's all telling me like, I want to build a brothel out there. So I started clearing out the land, and I hired a bunch of workers, and we had tractors out there, and we were moving the earth around. And this one time we were moving the earth, we unearthed this meteorite. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, this meteorite. As soon as we unearthed it, like all this craziness started happening. I started seeing giant bats. I started seeing coyotes that get up and walk on two legs. I started seeing fireballs fall out of the sky. There was UFOs, and I'm like, dude, this sounds like Skinwalker Ranch to me, man. You're talking Skinwalker Ranch stuff. And he's like, no, this is in El Paso. This is like right up the road. I'll give you my address, all this other stuff. But the thing that happened was these workers that were out there, we found this thing. And I'm like, this thing? He's like, yeah, it's a body. We don't know what it is. We can't tell what it is. And I took it to this professor at UTEP, and he took samples from it. After he took the samples, the feds showed up. And then the men in black showed up, and they wanted it. They wanted to keep it, but I kept it hidden so they couldn't take it. But they've been buzzing around. And ever since that happened, my workers don't want to come back to the land. They say that it's cursed. And let me tell you what it is. And I'm like, don't say it, man, because I know what you're going to say. Don't say it. And sure enough, he's like, it's a skinwalker. And I'm like, dude, you're not supposed to say that out loud. If you know anything about anything, you're not supposed to. He's like, yeah, I know. I'm Navajo. And I'm like, that's even worse, man. You're not even... What are you doing? So he's like, nah, it's all right, man. I know. It's all right. So...
Wait, I always wonder with that. I hate to interrupt you, but I always wonder with that is because of the fact that Skinwalker would be it's an English word, it's an American word, whatever it is. It's not a Navajo word. Would it be because it's okay to say it because it's not the word?
Yeah, and then I've looked up the actual word, and I'm not gonna say the word.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
if you give it that power, like this is what I think it is, then it will manifest itself. And I've heard stories, man, that these things will haunt you till the end of your days and beyond. Looking for you, and it's really really scary. But if you say the actual word, that's when they show up. And it's interesting. I have a side story to this. I'll tell you right now. But let me get into this one. So. He tells me that, and I'm like, you know what, man? Like, this is kind of hard to believe. He's like, well, I got pictures. I'm like, all right, cool. Pictures or it didn't happen, right? And sure enough, he's like, he pulls out his phone, and he starts showing me these pictures, and I'm like, holy crap, what is that? And by this time, everybody in the shop was like gathered around looking at this man's phone, like trying to see what it was. And my coworkers are like, what the hell is that? And I'm like, send them to me. He's like, all right, yeah, I'm going to send them to you. So immediately he sent them to me, and I started looking at them. So let me bring it up so that you can see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm really curious. I'm even more curious now that you think it's a potential an SW.
Oh man, like I think it is, sir. I think it is. Okay, let me just not mess this up again.
I don't know what it is. When you showed it to me, I don't know what it is.
There it is.
My mind just goes to did someone torture a poor creature? And
that's what I thought.
Kind of Frankenstein this thing up.
That's what I thought at first, but then like when you really look at it, you're like, okay, that's enough. I mean, let me show it because everyone's like probably dying to see it. Let me see here. Did it go through? No. Okay.
All right. I see the backstage down there.
Okay. Let me stop this again. As you can tell, I'm not very good at this. This is usually Oli that handles this stuff. So
open up the picture.
Okay.
And then it should give you a window option to show that window screen.
Okay. Let me see here.
And then you can just kind of like scroll through, like with the arrows or whatever at the side of it.
I know we did it right now. I know it's so easy. There we go. Let's see. And boom. How's that?
Let's see. Oh, I don't see it. It's not coming up.
Nothing yet? All right, let me try.
Jetto Jagas has had two co-workers who may have had an encounter with a skinwalker on a golf course at 3 a.m. They both lost their jobs and fell into poor health. That is like a common story about falling into poor health after contact with something that is believed to be one of those things. All right, I see it. Okay.
Okay, so this is, you can see it now, right?
Yeah, see if you could zoom in on that as much as you can.
I'm gonna zoom in on this guy. So this is what he showed me, and he said that he put the the cooler so you could compare it in size. That's a tire in the back. So this thing's pretty big. Um,
Good
this
grief.
part, the front of it is what weirded me out because what is that? What is that? The arms are like. Hold on, let me see if I can. There you go. That's a shot of the hands, how they end like in these little scapula.
Yeah, they're like
shovel type.
scoops.
Yeah,
They're like,
yeah.
it's like a scoop.
There's no fingers, and that's
There's
what I was
no-
looking
yeah.
for.
And it doesn't even look like it's the base of a hand, and then the fingers have been chopped off or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, dislocated. It just looks like a scoop.
And people that look at him, they're like, oh, that's string. That's string. I'm like, no, that's not string. That's skin. That's flesh. That's what's left of it. And you can see the hair follicles and stuff like that. And then the next one, that's the face right there. You can see the arms, the way the arms are underneath it. So this guy keeps on, going with his story that he says that it's a skinwalker, that it's this thing that they found, and the workers are no longer, wanting to go and help him clear the land anymore. And he gave me his information, he gave me his number, and I had an open invitation. This happened at the beginning of summer of this year. And he's like, you have an open invitation to go to my land whenever you want. Just give me a call and show up, whatever you want to do. And everybody that I tell this story to, they're like, yeah, let's go. I've got guns. Let's go. I got an RV or whatever, an off-road vehicle. Let's go. So now that it's getting cooler, I want to go out there. I want to see what this is all about. Let's see. You can see the back of it here. Let's see. That's the back legs. And they do kind of look cat-like or rabbit-like. Some people have said it looks rabbit-like.
Yeah, that's why, I mean, man, I don't know what the hell this would be. I don't know if it was some kind of an experiment, some kind of a thing done later, some kind of genetic mutation, or, something stranger. But I don't know what the hell it is. I mean, I know you said that he went to get it tested and then feds got involved. Did they confiscate any of the results?
He said that they hadn't yet, but that they kept bothering him, and he has it like isolated. He built like a shelter for it, and he has it like somewhere on his land. But he said that when the feds showed up, that he wouldn't let them take it. They was like, no, I'm not even going to tell you where it is. He had it in a different section of the land. He said that there was UFOs, that there was helicopters, all this stuff was going on at his ranch, and I'm like, man, that's like a lot. That's a lot of stuff going on.
Okay,
there.
so the other thing is he trying to advertise that this kind of stuff is happening?
No,
he's not trying to get attention for it. That's even more interesting.
Not trying to get attention. He was very like, here, take the pictures here, and he sent it to me immediately. He's like, go ahead, do whatever you want with them, tell whoever you want. I just haven't had a chance to like sit down and talk to him.
Because it looks almost like prairie doggish, but with humongous, like the arms are huge.
Mm-hmm.
That's
They're longer than the legs.
Yeah, that's the thing that's weird.
See, I mean, this is a cap. This is a regular cap, right? Like a man's head, and this is the size of its head. So, the glove, like that's a regular glove, and that's how big this thing is. It's not small. I know that.
I really have no idea, and I don't want to go down the cryptid rabbit hole.
I know,
but I don't know. I don't know anything. I mean, in the chat, what do you guys think about this?
I mean, you see the whiskers, and so everyone immediately thinks it's a cat or a rabbit or something like that. But this part right here, these shoulders, just don't make any sense to me.
And do you trust this guy with his Men in Black story? Because and Johnny's actually mentioning it too. Is it because I feel like the Men in Black would be a little bit more persistent about it?
Yeah, I think so too. I think they would be like, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah,
let's look at what you're doing.
Yeah, because for every Men in Black story I've ever heard is like they kind of get their way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
One way or the other.
So I don't know if he was maybe meaning like it was the feds dressed in black.
Yeah.
Men in Black are no joke. They show up and they take care of business, and that's it.
And it's specific people. The Men in Black are like, they're generally humanoid looking.
Yeah.
Very, very polite. They almost seem like Nazis wearing people suits.
There you go.
Is how they're described. How Nazis are always like, oh, they're so polite, but they're unbelievably threatening.
They're creepy. Yeah, they're creepy and
And
they're
I
very
mean, like,
off-putting.
yeah, like old timey. That's the stereotype. Old
There you
timey
go.
Nazis. You know.
Old-timey Nazis.
But like, yeah, they're creepy. They don't seem to have coloration, like lips, like lip coloration. They act odd, like they don't do things that kind of seem like a normal person's reaction or a normal person's way of speaking. Like they'll use phrases wrong.
Yes.
You know, they'll even seem to be sometimes they almost behave in an alien way. A lot of the accounts where like they're fascinated by things that like you give them a pen, and they're just like, oh.
Yeah.
And
they're
then
like,
they
"Wow,
almost seem, yeah. And then sometimes people give accounts that they almost seem like they're powered, like that they're some kind of cyborg, where like they'll be talking to you for a amount of time, and let's say it's 2 or 3 hours into the conversation, and they just seem to just power down, and then they have to just go. You know, there's all kinds of. It's just everything's weird when it has to do with Men in Black. Those are every single story. It's not just like people showing up and being intimidating and dressed in black with whatever. So I wonder who specifically talked to him and what they said, what they acted like. I'd love to. You should try to get him. I don't know. Would he even go on your show? Would you
I gotta
wanna?
I gotta ask him. Now that it's cooler, like I guess it's better to travel out there because during the summer it's just blistering hot. So we've all been waiting for the season to come, you know, for autumn to show up so that we can go out there because it's a lot cooler at night and everyone's ready. They're like, yeah, we'll go camp, we'll stay the night over. And I asked him that too, like, you don't mind if we go and, you know, stay the night? They're like, you're welcome to try, but I've had people go out there and they don't last very long. They only last a few hours and then they leave. And I'm like, why is that? And he's like, well, all the stuff I just told you. You know, they see it. They see stuff. They see shadows. They see smoke, you know, hovering around, the UFOs, you know, the giant bats. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And this area where he's at, it's very close to Waco Tanks. And Waco Tanks, that's where there's been sightings of Sasquatch, you know, the desert apes, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's been going on for years, for decades, actually, that these things have been out there. There's actual cave paintings where they show these things that, you know, the natives that were in the area, they painted them onto the walls. And recently there's been reports, you know, that they're out there, that they snatch like the dogs and there's the goats and stuff, and they take them and they do whatever it is, you know, they eat them and stuff. But that's, you know, that there's that going on in this area, and then there's now this, you know, whatever he was explaining to me, the fireballs falling out of the sky, you know, the UFOs. Like, I'm like, man, what is happening out there? So now that it's cooler, I am really going to get together with a bunch of people and go out there and see. Of course, you know, everybody that I talk to, they want to take guns. They want to take shotguns and ARs and, you know, pistols and stuff. So let's see what happens
into
with
a predator situation.
I know. It's gonna be like Billy, what's out there? He's like, what's out there? Ain't no man. So we're all gonna die. So let's see what happens. But yeah, now that the weather is cooler, I really want to pursue this and see what comes of it.
Wow. I can't wrap my head around it completely, but I'm gonna have after you do that, I'm gonna have you back on the show, and we're gonna have to talk about what you found.
Definitely.
And yeah, even if it was like, Pete, this ain't nothing. Big load of nothing. He got Joe Meteorite. You ever see Joe Dirt?
Yes, I remember. Joe Meteorite instead.
He got Joe Meteorite. He's been eating French fries to catch up right off of that big old poop space ball.
Oh man, no, but I will keep in touch with you, sir. I'll find out. Probably, you know what? As a matter of fact, tomorrow when I go back to work, I'm gonna look him up and see what's up.
Yeah.
Give him a call and see what's going on, because yeah, it's about that time. It's about that.
Because otherwise, man, if it's something especially that has to do with a meteorite and moving it or uncovering it or whatever it might be, that's just like so many different sci-fi stories, man.
Exactly. It's like, why did you do that? And like, it's been there for thousands upon thousands of years, and you moved it. So
that's just, yeah, that's like end times stuff.
Oh yeah.
Good job, guy.
Thanks a lot for destroying the world, man. Oh man.
It's like the Dusk Till Dawn brothel. I forget the name of it.
Oh, the titty twister.
Yeah. It's like that he's building over there, And yeah, oh my lord.
I'll
Good
look him up
grief.
tomorrow and see what's up with him. And he said he had more evidence. He had other stuff that he hadn't taken pictures of that he's found out there. This was one of the things that he found. So I'm curious as to what else he has out there. Hopefully the feds didn't get to him. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
call him up and he's gonna be
at that point,
lobotomized or something.
right? You'd be like, everything fine, pray.
Thank you.
No thing on the place.
On the place.
All good. You're like, oh great.
Oh man, and they start coming after me. Oh man.
Holy smokes, man. You know, if he is finding so many weird things, though, he should consider instead opening up some kind of an oddities museum as opposed to a brothel. You know,
Yeah.
have some kind of like paranormal observatory thing going on. Here's a bunch of the oddities that we found, and create like a tourist tourist location as opposed to a different kind of tourist.
A paranormal brothel. Come for the paranormal, stay for the brothel or something. Oh man, I'm curious to see where he's at, so I'm gonna get in touch with him. It's been a few months, so and what you say, rings true. Like he hasn't tried to get any sort of notoriety. He's trying to keep to himself. He just wants to build his brothel, and that's
Yeah,
it.
that's
So
interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, because I was gonna say, is he trying to use that as some kind of publicity stunt? And if he's
No.
not, then it really is like, that gets a little bit more interesting.
like honestly, when I spoke to him, he seemed very, very excited, but at the same time, very, I guess, paranoid about what's
Yeah.
happening because he kept mentioning all these, these people that kept showing up at his land. So maybe that's why he hasn't pursued, getting it out to the public or something like that. So
That's
that is a
interesting.
possibility.
Johnny be casual, camping with skinwalkers. Yeah, instead of Skinwalker Ranch, you got Skinwalker Camp. Fun for the whole family until it's not.
Until it's not, take one with you, go back home with the skinwalker. Oh man.
Go to Skinwalker Camp, they said. Have lots of fun, they
lots of
said.
Oh man, what'd you get at Skinwalker Camp? I don't know, replaced, I guess.
Holy smokes.
Oh man.
Stories that'll last a lifetime. How long that lifetime lasts is up to the Skinwalker.
It's not the Skinwalker, man. Oh.
Good grief. Man, oh man. We have a question here from Jetto Jaga asks, what about those 7-foot tall aliens in Peru?
Oh. Did you hear about those?
Is that a tie-in to like the Paracas
Yes.
skull and things like that?
No, I don't know about the practice hall, but they was in that area.
But it was in
when
that
they
area,
found
right?
it. Yeah. Apparently these guys are like cannibals or something. These 7-foot tall aliens were cannibals.
Yeah, all the giants are cannibals. I guess
know.
they have to be. They need a big meal.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Like they got something to satisfy themselves, Like,
Yeah, they
Oh.
eat like the chicken or the cow, and they look around and they're like, I'm still hungry.
Hey,
Eat
this
the
human
Chinese
looks
guy,
pretty
but you'll be hungry again in 15 minutes.
There you go. Oh man, and I wonder if that relates to the Las Vegas sightings because apparently those things were like 7 feet tall. The ones that they caught in that dude's backyard. So
Yeah,
I don't know if
that's
you heard about that one.
yeah, I heard about that one, and it seems like it has to be. It seems like a lot of this stuff has to be connected, related in some way with each other, and all I know is it's even more interesting. And I don't know if you guys have anything that's like this. Every country probably does. Obviously, you guys being in El Paso, where you are. Is not a different country, of course, but I'm
Feels like
talking.
it sometimes, Pete, I'll
Yeah,
tell you.
I'm talking more about the region of because there's a lot of people in the Mexico region where there's so many strange friggin' things that happen there, and they seem to bury all of that in the same way too
Oh yeah,
that
oh,
the American
man.
government does. And all of them do it. But we have like the Smithsonian with all of the different giant bones that they just misplace.
Where are they? I don't know. Somewhere around here. It's the Smithsonian. It's huge. You don't know where they're at.
Yeah. And then that was super weird with that whole Mexico, the congressional hearing that they had, where they're bringing out like the little
The
guy.
cake.
They
It
bring
looked
out,
like
like
a
the little,
cake.
yeah. I saw that. You know, he wasn't a cake when they brought, but there was a hell of a great meme about it.
Mm.
But they focused so much on the little guy, and then they didn't focus really at all on the one that actually looks like a big giant alien mummy.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone was too entertained with the little. Oh, look, it's a little alien. Those are harmless. It's okay. We'll talk about that one, but don't talk about the giant mummy.
Yeah, yeah. Don't talk about that one with the elongated skull, and it's clearly a mummy of something that may or may not be human. Don't talk about
Exactly,
that.
man.
Talk about the thing that looks like a really bad statue. And that's that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's the craziest thing. And I had to dig a little bit to even see that they brought that one out too.
Hmm.
And I've heard a lot about those kinds of mummies before, but it's so strange that the timing they brought it out, how they decided to present it, and then just acting almost as if like they had recently found it,
Hmm.
but like they didn't recently find it.
Oh
So
no.
then you're sitting there thinking, well, why are you just talking about this now? Like there's so many different weird things being brought up with this stuff. And then even in our own country with the UAP hearings and everything else, and I mean that was like months ago, and then they're supposed to have a skiff during 2024. They said before December 2024. I'm like, "Oh, well this way they have enough time to move everything they got to move, right?"
Exactly. That's it. They gotta hide it all, next to the ark and whatever else, the giant bones and stuff.
It's crazy. Crazy.
Yeah,
Hey,
man.
what's up, Jimmy? How you doing? But I do want to ask you, why do you think it is that, in terms of cryptids, there's so many operations and projects and yada yada and tons and tons of stuff about UFOs, right? And extraterrestrial life and the possibility thereof. But as far as cryptids, there's very little public documentation and projects and operations and government oversight and any acknowledgement whatsoever given towards that subject, even though it is so prevalent. It's a whole industry, if anything, making money off of Bigfoot and Sasquatch and various cryptids and cryptid hunting and all this other kind of stuff and sightings. And why do you think it is that they keep on wanting to suppress that, to not even acknowledge it as much with a equivalent of a Project Blue Book kind of a thing?
I think it has to do a lot with like local legends, local folklore, people that have grown up with this stuff. There's nothing to scare them with. Oh yeah, it's a funny story, but everyone like, and that's something with the cryptonomes, and I'll come back to that. But every time that I ever read a cryptid book, something that was cryptid related, they always took the tone of it being funny or being comedic. They never took it seriously. And I think that has a lot to do with it too. A lot of people don't want to take it seriously. They want to find the comedy in it, or they want to find the humor in it rather, so that they don't have to deal with it and not have to face that. Oh man, there's something out there. Recently, with the advent of the iPhone, the phone, the digital cameras and everything, that's easy to capture stuff. More stuff has come out than it has ever before, and a lot of it is like brushed off as, oh, it's a fake, or no, that's not really happening, or they turn it into a meme, and it's like they try to find the humor in it again. When it comes to UFOs, it always seems like it's the government, it's a conspiracy, and people kind of latch onto that because there's this feeling right now, especially, that we can't trust them. We can't trust the government for anything that they're doing. So it's easier for us to believe in that because we believe the government is corrupt. We believe that the government is hiding stuff from us. Why not UFOs? Than Bigfoot. Oh yeah, that's just some funny thing. That's just something that people tell each other around the campfire, trying to
Yeah,
scare
I
each other.
wonder why it is that they think that there couldn't be a cover up and a conspiracy for that information as well.
Yeah, exactly. There
Because
was a.
it makes total sense to me why they'd want to cover up that kind of stuff.
Hmm. Exactly. And there's I don't know if you listen to him, but Sasquatch Chronicles. I forgot his name, but his first name is Wes, and he always has people on there that have some sort of merit. They're ex-cops or they're park rangers or they're ex-military. And they always tell their stories, their occurrences with usually it's Bigfoot related, usually it's Sasquatch related, and some of the stuff that comes out that they talk about like makes a lot of sense and it's kind of scary, but it's kind of like brushed under the rug. There was one story that they said about this hunter, and I'll relate it to you really quickly because this is the one that stuck with me, about how the government is involved. There was a hunter that went out to the woods and he disappeared, and his wife called the local park ranger to go investigate because they knew each other. So when the park ranger got out there, he found what was this man's campsite had been completely like torn apart. There was blood everywhere. And on top of his truck, there was an indentation of something that had slammed like down on the hood.
Oh, wow.
And he started like, he's a park ranger, so he knows the animals in the area. He started looking around and he found tracks. The tracks that he found led out of that campsite, and there was a blood trail. So he started following the blood trail. And this is the park ranger once again that's telling the story. He said that he got to a point where he started finding pieces of someone. He found a boot, and inside the boot there was a foot. And he kept going, and he found like ripped up clothes, but there was flesh attached to it. And he found an arm, and he kept going until he found this man's head. And he was like, what? What could have done that? What animal could have possibly have done that? A bear would have mauled you, and that's it. He would have ripped you apart, and you would have been all in one place. He wouldn't have carried off pieces of you and just spread them around. To him, it seemed like whatever had taken this man started yanking pieces of him off and just throwing them. So he went back and he called it in. And that within an hour, the feds showed up. And they secured the area. They told the park ranger, like, we'll take it from here. Don't worry about it. And they drove up and they had a big van with them. It looked like a canine unit van. And when they opened up the van, and he remembers, and he's talking to the host, talking about what he saw. He says that when they opened up the van, these two giant dogs came out, and he had never seen anything like it. He said that they looked like small cows.
Well,
they
like
were
dire
massive.
wolves.
Yeah, they looked like dire wolves, something like that. And they were massive dogs, but he said they looked more like Rottweilers than anything else. And he had never seen anything like that. And as soon as they came out, they were muzzled, and they let them go, and they ran off into the woods, and they started following them. And they told him, like, don't repeat anything that you saw. This is what we're taking care of. There's someone loose in the area that's obviously like deranged, and we're gonna take care of it here. And that was the story that he was fed.
Deranged people just, they got that crazy strength. They just rip your legs
off.
Yeah,
the deranged strength, man. They just rip your legs off and rip off your head.
That's again like Dusk Till Dawn. I don't care how psycho they are. Psychos don't explode in sunlight.
I love that line. So this park ranger had to go back and tell this man's wife, he died. And when she asked, like, well, what happened? Like, he couldn't tell her exactly what had happened until everything was cleared out. And that's like the gist of the story. I mean, there's more to the story than that, but that was the actual like main part of the story. So that tells me that the government is aware that there's something out there, and they've taken precautions in order to deal with it if it does come down to it. So why not play that up, or why not give us more of that information? Why? Because it's actually something very, very scary that lives in those woods that we probably would not be able to deal with. It might be like a whole race of creatures that will destroy us, if given the opportunity. So,
and especially that kind of a thing too, where people are so inclined to go, well, wouldn't that just be like another species of primate, And it's like, not really.
Yeah, and that's another thing too about his show. Like at the end of the show, he always asks his guests, like, what do you think it is? Because he's shared his experience. And the host is dead set on the fact that they're not human. And if he had the chance, he would like destroy them on sight. But he always gives the guests that he has the opportunity to answer that question. And most of them say the same thing. Like, yeah, they're not human. They're not human. Whatever they are not human. So what are they?
They're highly territorial, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. That's for sure.
And when I had Dr. Simeon Hine on the show a couple weeks ago, he was saying how it's unbelievably irresponsible of the government at this point to not at least put warnings in certain areas, because people have to know what could potentially be out there because people go out there and it's not anything close to a bear or a cougar or this or that or whatever. It's a whole other higher intelligence, and it is much stronger and much faster, and it is highly territorial. And you get into a certain point, and it'll kill you. And so it's one of those, like, you just go out camping or whatever, and you don't expect to see a gigantic, 7-8 foot tall Sasquatch type creature. And I mean, there's so many stories even of hearing howling and hearing all kinds of different chattery noises where it sounds like a language. It's not just noise, and it's very unusual. Something's out there.
Something's definitely out there. And it's. Have you ever seen the missing 401?
Yeah. Are you talking about a specific episode though? Or?
Oh, the one that they had. It was called The Hunters.
No, I didn't see that one.
No, check that one out. That one is
okay.
Creepy, man. Like, that one is so creepy because everything that we're talking about, they talk about, the fact that hunters have had all these experiences and how, they're out in the woods and all of a sudden you turn, to your buddy, you see him there, and then you turn away for like half a second, you turn back and they're gone. Like, what takes them? And how they found their friends like up high in these trees. Like, there's no way they could get up there, without someone putting them up there. They go into that whole thing. Like, if you get a chance, watch it. It's called Hunters, or the Missing 411, The Hunters. And I think it's on YouTube, actually. I think I saw it on YouTube. But that stuff made me never want to go into the woods. The desert, sure, why not? What am I gonna miss? Visit there, like fireballs falling out of the sky, whatever. But the woods, on the other hand, no, that's quite all right, man. And then you live in New Hampshire, man. Like, the woods are like right there,
Yeah, and I respect them, and I enjoy them from a distance.
I'll look out the window. They're still there. Okay, we're
good. And I think that's part of the reason of what makes this state work in a way, is because it has this respect for the wilderness, and it feels very purposeful. Like, yep, we leave that alone.
Yeah, just like the Appalachians, just leave the Appalachians alone. You don't have anything, don't worry about it.
Exactly. You leave that alone, they leave you alone, and we have an understanding. And that's a big part of the reason too why I think we don't have a government task force mapping out LiDAR the whole entire forests and really just complete entire scope of just investigate square foot of every single forest trying to track down the Squatch. It's more like, no, we know they're there and we're just gonna let them be, because if we don't, we're screwed.
Yeah, exactly. Just leave it alone. Don't mess with it. Whatever happens, and that's it. But I mean, out of all the cryptids, I think Bigfoot's the one that is real. He's out there.
Yeah, some of them, it really is like, okay, there could be a genetic mutation, there could be an experiment, there could be misconstrued decay that's and you're not familiar with seeing that, and so some of them just like, I don't know. But that one, it's just there's too many stories across the entire world.
The Nephilim story, the Nephilim theory. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah.
That one creeps me out, man, because I'm like, wow, imagine that makes a lot of sense to me, and it's especially coming from a Catholic background. I'm like, holy crap, that probably did happen. That probably is something right there.
Yeah. It's the whole world is a very different place if we start to take a lot of those stories as, no, that actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
And not just,
no, yeah, it happened.
Yeah, that went down. As opposed to, oh, these are stories and there's a metaphor in there and a lot of it's figure. I'm like, really? Well, if you want to interpret it that way, it changes the entire scope of what all of that's about.
Oh yeah.
It's already crazy enough that you get like the various revisions over the years. People that are like, yeah, that God guy, he's pretty good, but like he gotta get his stories edited.
Yeah, exactly. Like, did you hear the one about the super baby that has like these powers and he flies around?
Yeah. We got to make that a little grounded. I mean. No one's gonna believe that. We gotta kill the guy, right?
Yeah,
That's how
you
that's gotta work.
There's got to be a lesson involved, something.
Yeah, where's the drama, right? You get like J. Jonah Jameson, like, give me more pictures of Jesus. It's like just it's strange. There's so many revisions. There's so many omissions. There's so many additions to these biblical type word of God texts where it's literally being spoken through a human being, and it's like that God told you that that's what it is, and then that's what it is. And then people come along hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and they're like, well, what if God said this instead and slipped you a $50?
There you go.
There you go. For 100, if God said that instead, is that cool?
Sure, why not? The one that gets to me is like every few years they find more editions or extra chapters. Like, hey, we found this extra chapter.
Yeah, look, it's like Tupac releasing albums. You know,
from beyond the grave.
Hey, look at this! There's a new album from Tupac over here. We were digging up at a local Caldor, and we found Tupac's 50th new studio album.
Wow, that's awesome.
Who knew he did so many?
He had a lot of free time, I'll tell you that.
He did all these albums, and we just didn't know. Comics for Life says, do you believe in the theory that Bigfoot is able to move from one dimension to another? So like the interdimensional kind of theory for Bigfoot. So that is definitely one. And he also mentions about Bigfoot and a link to UFOs. But I think there's a combination of a lot of things. I think that there's a certain kind of Sasquatch that we know to be. And then there's another kind of species or creature or entity or whatever it may be that could be something else. I think whatever it is, they have a very strong energy signature. I think if it's something that no matter what, interdimensional or not, I think it's vibrating sometimes on a different frequency or able to. So I think if it's tied to like ancient civilization, you think about a lot of ancient cultures, if those people that were able to do some of the things we can't wrap our friggin' minds around, build the things they did, move the things they did, make the carvings they made into things that just you can't, it would be almost impossible to do with modern technology, and that it seemed like they easily were able to do it. So like whoever made like a Puma Punku kind of a thing, or built like Göbekli Tepe, or built like whatever you could possibly conceive of. Like the pyramids are insane, but there's so many other things where they're like, so and everyone everywhere was doing these things thousands of years ago. And imagine if they survived through, they would have some kind of ability at then, but even now, I think, where they'd be harnessing some kind of energy, they'd be able to be utilizing the energy of the earth, whatever it is. And I think that would create that interdimensional aspect, almost like being able to vibrate, like how the Flash could vibrate so fast, but almost like they have such a different field of energy that almost like that Philadelphia experiment type of thing, utilizing like EMF to appear invisible. And that thing went weird. And they still deny it, but that was, there's a lot of things that say otherwise. But that whole concept, and I think maybe a Sasquatch would have the ability to do that, but that's just my theory.
I mean, I agree with you on that because, for one, they're more connected with the Earth than we ever could possibly be. We use, technology to try and connect us to the Earth, but they're like on another level. Like you're saying, their vibration is way different. So why not something that comes a little bit more difficult to us comes easily to them when being able to do that? Like they can harness powers that we don't even know about. And that would come into play, especially like if they're splitting dimensions, if they're, and I've heard about that, especially like the resonance, apparently that these creatures, they emit this frequency that we cannot hear, but immediately after we witness one, a human witnesses one, they become violently ill to the point where they're like throwing up, or
it's like radiation sickness.
Yeah, but it's not deadly. It's just something that they emit. That's always been very interesting to me. The whole dimensional thing. They are another frequency, like you're saying, and they have the ability to just jump in and out of past, future, and present. To the point where every time someone takes a picture of them, or every time someone takes video of them, it's always blurry because you can't catch them in their full form. And that this is not their final form kind of thing.
You're getting electronic interference. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's it's a hell of a thing. But yeah, something's going crazy with it. And there's so many
100%.
different there's so many different kinds of things that occur. So man, but it's no matter what, I got to tell you, it's fun as all hell trying to explore it as a storyteller.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I've had so much fun like with the Cryptids, man. Like just going all over the place, feeding into world occurrences, and just putting them into the book and stuff. And it's just been awesome. I like Bigfoot. He is awesome. That's cool.
Yeah, I like that. Let's see. Jetto says all big feet are time travelers. Big feet or Bigfoots? What would you say it is?
I think it's just Bigfoot, isn't it?
Just Bigfoot?
Kind of like moose, like it's just a bunch
like
of
fish? Like it ain't fishes?
Yeah, it's not fishes. It's just fish.
It's not meese. It's moose.
It's moose.
No,
Mices.
Mooses.
Mooses. Oh man.
Moose. It's like mooses to some guy in Brooklyn. You know, I saw a bunch of mooses up there in the Maine.
In the Maine. Oh man, those things are scary too. What are you talking about?
Oh,
Freaking
moose are
like
huge.
How tall are they? Like 8, 9 feet or something?
With like
like
the
that?
antlers, they're like 9 feet tall. Like it's crazy.
These are enormous.
Yeah, people I think they're a little bigger than a deer.
No, no, they're not.
They're like a friggin'. There's like it's a deer if a deer was a grizzly bear with antlers.
Yeah, there you go. Oh man,
They're huge. Yeah, that stuff. I mean, they could ram your car and your car will just flip.
I saw this.
I mean,
this
they've done it.
I saw this crazy meme that apparently is based on fact that moose are able to dive deeply into lakes, right? And some of these lakes they feed into like the Arctic where there's killer whales, and that there has been reports where they catch killer whales and inside their bellies are like pieces of moose. They're like, holy crap, man! Like, what the hell is going on there? So that's scary in itself.
That's like that's something out of a comic book.
Exactly.
It's just like, how did that happen?
There's a story here.
Yeah. Who pissed the other off first?
He was just moose. He was just minding his own business and swimming around. This killer whale shows up. And... Oh man,
Crazy, absolutely crazy. The world, no matter what we want to think of it, we have almost no idea about anything that's going on in the world. Anything that the creatures that live here and have lived here, we know just the tip, of the iceberg of it. And then talking about what exists in the ocean, forget it.
Oh, dude, the ocean just
Holy
scares
crap.
the living daylights out of me. I want nothing to do with the ocean. I mean, even taking a bath, if the water's too deep, I don't want anything to do with it. You know, just shower instead, and that's it.
Yeah, and it's like a very human response, I think, to be unbelievably afraid of the ocean. That's why the explorers back in the day, I never in a million years, man, I'm staying here. You have fun going to the end of the world.
I'll deal with the Sasquatch in the woods. Thank you. I don't want anything to do with the Kraken. You go right ahead.
Holy smokes. Man, this was a great conversation. Thank you so much, Ray.
Thank you for having me, Pete. This was awesome. I had a really good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we do go, where can they find you, and also where can they find your books?
So the book, you can find it at any of your local comic book store. If they don't have it, ask them to carry it, of course. And they're probably sitting next to the alternative books as well. So there you go, plug for you as well. But if you can't find them there, you can go to thecryptids.com, and there's a bunch of links. It's kind of like a link tree, and it gives you where you can buy them online and get them shipped to your house. And like I said, some of those issues are selling out. I think issue 1 is almost sold out everywhere online and in bookstores. Issue 2 is on its way as well. So, and we're gearing up now for issue 5. We're in the preparation phase for that one, and issue 4 is on the shelves also.
Nice. Fantastic, man. And thank you, What Geeks Do Networks. It's a very good show. Thanks, guys.
Thank
and
you.
Some person says new BFFs. Nah, we're old BFFs. We've been BFFs for like what, 2 years?
Oh yeah, Awesome. I'm still waiting for the crossover, sir. We still have to do the crossover, man. Like,
I'm telling you, I want to get to a certain point with King Cryptid where there's a familiarity around the character, you know, and then we can make the most out of a crossover.
that would be awesome.
And have something fun to do. Because it's no fun having a crossover when people barely really know the character, you know? And I mean the audience, not even if anyone else is working on it. I mean just the audience. You want to be able to have them anticipate how characters are going to behave and when they meet up with each other, what's that going to be like? You know, the anticipation
is it
on that
organic
level.
or is it forced? Stuff like that. So yeah, definitely. I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, one day it'll be a lot of fun.
Yes, sir. I look forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So tomorrow is a full moon. It is a hunter's moon, which means that we're going to have a special on the King Cryptid campaign tomorrow. So you can go to kingcryptid.com and check that out, or you can go to alternatecomics.com/kingcryptid to check out what that's going to be. Hint, hint, it's going to be a beanie with the King Cryptid logo on it. So if you guys are looking for that, feel free to pick that up. That's going to be tomorrow on those sites. Other than that, if you guys have not had a chance to pick up King Cryptid yet, issues 5 to 9 are currently funding. Issues 1 to 4 are available right now. And I gotta tell you, I'm in like writer creation mode right now, getting all the scripts to the artists, and it's just so fun. It is so fun. There's nothing like it, right, man?
Oh,
nothing like creating.
Once you're in the zone and you get going and stuff. Oh man, I love the research aspect of it too. Like just delving into all these stories and trying to make them your own, trying to find an angle that no one's ever done before. That stuff, I love that stuff.
Yeah, and just like when you're writing certain scenes, you're like, I can't wait till people read that and what they think of it.
It's funny because we were watching it last night, and that scene where he's typing at the very beginning, and he's like, yeah, he's going like that. I'm like, yeah, I've experienced that. Yeah, that happens. You're like, yeah, this is great. Yeah, I love it. like that scene in Christmas Story where he writes the essay and he's like, oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. Like,
yeah. You got like the little the Ralphie tongue going like,
yeah. Gotta keep working at it. Yeah, this is awesome.
Man, oh man, yeah, nothing like it. And thank you guys in the chat for making that feeling not just palpable but real. Because when it happens and we get those books into your hands and you communicate with us about what you're enjoying about them and how much you're digging them, that means the world. And I think I could speak for Ray here with that, but that's what makes you excited to get going on the next one. You know, because it's an addictive feeling. You want to share that story, communicate it to people, see what they think about it, and then just keep feeding off of that, like the energy stuff we were talking about in the beginning of the show.
And right now is the perfect time because like I said, I'm really deeply into the whole native traditions, and during the fall is storytelling time because everyone would gather. The outside elements would make everybody gather in one place, and they would share stories. And this is the perfect time for that, and I love it. Like there's different times of the year where you can share different types of stories, and right now, oh my God, man, this is perfect weather, coffee house weather, writing weather, storytelling weather.
Yeah, 100%. All right, everybody, I'll be back tomorrow night at 9 o'clock Eastern with Shay the Red of Red Valkyrie. And we're going to be talking about paranormal experiences. We're doing a lot of this stuff this month, of course. Can't imagine why. But she's got a doozy. The last time that she was on the show was for Hosting the Hosts, and she was talking to me about a whole bunch of paranormal experiences that she's had.
Oh, man.
And I was like, we should have just kept the show going. So she's coming back.
I gotta go back on her show. I want to check that out. That's cool.
Yeah, so she's coming back. She's going to be talking about a bunch of those things. I'll probably share a couple of my own. Some of you guys probably have heard those before, but I'll share them. And so she'll be back tomorrow night, 9 o'clock Eastern. See you guys then. Until then, have a great night and an even better tomorrow. See you guys.
Excelsior, guys.